Howdy ho, Maplers, and welcome to our first 250 of 2022. It is Dawn Warrior, the Warrior Cygnus Knight character. Dawn Warrior was one of the few classes that I was genuinely looking forward to, as it has been one of the classes I never really forayed into that much beyond 5th job. And I gotta say, the training as a warrior doesn't really get too much easier than Dawn Warrior. This class is a certified sleeper farmer. It is very, very relaxed, and it is very good rates, especially for a warrior class. For the equipment, all of my standard stuff, although there are some changes. My reinforced ring and my superior ring are now drop rate, because I finally pulled my head out of my butt and made my NLC set for Meso obtained, so now I have a full tradable set, or at least P-sockable set, of Meso and drop gear. So there's some slight improvements to my 250 gear, but nothing that's really going to change any of the stats going forward on these characters. They're pretty much all going to be standardized for their damage output, but now it's a little more convenient for me, since I have that little bit extra drop rate. Helps out in the long run. My node stockpile, especially getting this late into all of the classes, is kinda dwindling. There was a point before I switched to Meso obtained gear where I had 13,000 nodes in my storage. Now I'm down to about 3,000. So it's getting pretty low. For the inner ability on Dawn Warrior, just like all Cygnus Knights, you ideally want 20% boss, but if you're going to be farming anyways, you can't go wrong with 20 Meso. Get a drop line if you can for a second or third line, but it's not super high priority. The big one there is the Meso. Dawn Warrior doesn't need attack speed +1 at all. Even with the two-handed weapon, it's already breaking the attack speed cap on its own with Sun Stance to get to attack speed 1. So Dawn Warrior definitely is no slouch for the attack speed department. For the V Matrix, as always, in its rightful spot, 3rd year running. Decent holy symbol. EXP drop rate, permanent uptime, couldn't ask for more. Throw it on if you got it, max it if you can. Best in slot skill. And then, one of the rare occasions where I actually max out a skill on my V-Matrix, Celestial Dance. This is one of Dawn Warrior's primary skills, but I throw it on this early because it is literally this important for Dawn Warrior. You want it ASAP, and you want it maxed ASAP if you can afford to, because maxing this effectively almost doubles the duration on this skill, and it allows Dawn Warrior to have its mobbing rotations that are as simple and as lazy as they are. This skill is supremely beneficial to max out. I would say almost, if you can only afford to max one, as heretical as it is to say, max Celestial Dance over Decent Holy Symbol. This thing will make your life a million times easier. You can always max Decent Holy Symbol second if you need to. And then for the one and only trio Dawn Warrior has, much like Bishop, this class is very simple with its trios. You've got Crescent Divide and Solar Pierce, Moon Dancer and Speeding Sunset, and Styx Crossing. That's all your skills. That is literally all of them. That is your bossing, that is your mobbing, and that is Styx Crossing. That's everything you need, all in 2 nice, neat trios. If you can get perfect trios, this class is a breeze. You're never going to be struggling for V-Matrix slot on, or V-Matrix spots on this class. And then for the other Dawn Warrior skills, you've got the iconic skill, the Soul Eclipse. This is the big bad sun that lasts for 40 seconds. This is pretty much your rest period while training. This is the biggest luxury skill I think I've seen since release Ice Age on Ice Lightning Mage. You literally press your button for Soul Eclipse and you can go take a break for 40 seconds. And this skill is up every 3 minutes. Dawn Warrior will absolutely spoil you in how nice it is to train. Like there's effectively no other class in the game where you get a 40-second break every 3 minutes while also getting better EXP rates than you were when this wasn't on. It's such a good skill for training. For bossing, it's very useful for damage output, but this is also Dawn Warrior's iframe skill, which is kind of awkward. You never really want to have one of your damaging abilities also being your iframe, because it leads to situations where you're giving up one for the other. But this is a two-part iframe. When you initially cast the skill and start it up and get the eclipse going, that's an iframe. And then when you manually explode the eclipse, that is also an iframe. They're pretty significant iframe durations as well, so they're really nice for that. But having your effectively what is one of your burst skills be your iframe never feels good for bossing. Thankfully, for most of my purposes, I don't generally need the iframe portion of the skill, so I can just let it do its full damage, and it feels really good when you're allowed to do that. However, most endgame bosses nowadays, you're not necessarily going to be allowed to do that. Pre-Genesis weapon, Dawn Warrior only has this thing and Blink effectively for super safety. Not the greatest situation to be in. Very solid skill overall though. And then the problem skill. Rift of Damnation. Good fucking god, this skill, dudes. Alright, so there's a problem with Styx Crossing in that it does way too many fucking damage lines. Like, way too many damage lines. There's so many damage lines that if you're running a battle analysis, the game will start to chug like it was designed in 1995 amount of damage lines. I have never seen a single skill absolutely destroy a battle analysis like this thing does. It is a stupid amount of damage lines for a single ability to have. Oh my god, this thing will put out almost 300,000 damage lines while you're training in a single hour. And this is a 3-minute cooldown. This skill is so fucking stupid when it comes to training, because this single skill right here completely destroys battle analyses to the point where you literally just can't use them, or else you will ruin your own EXP rates doing so because of the amount of lag this thing causes. Functionality-wise, it's horrible. Damage-wise, Rift of Damnation is insane. This skill is great. It's the thing that allows you to spam Styx Crossing with no cooldown. It does cut the final damage down a bit, but when you're doing this many damage lines, as well as having the additional, like, Rift that appears when you attack while Rift of Damnation is up, more than makes up for the 50% final damage cut. This skill is pretty insane. This is your next strongest burst skill. Like, your ideal burst setup is going to be Rift of Damnation with Soul Eclipse active. It does quite a bit of damage, but holy fuck, the cons outweigh the pros on this thing to me. I'm definitely somebody who loves himself a battle analysis, and not being able to ever do a proper full hour BA really sucks. I hate having to do guesswork with my EXP rates, but this skill alone mandatorizes guesswork with your EXP rates. And the final skill, the fully passive skill, a skill I hope we see more of in the future. Passive V-Matrix skills are really, really charming and nice. Like, there are classes who don't have enough keys for more active abilities, so I hope that going forward we have more skills like this. Literally just a 12-second cooldown. It does a big explosion around you when it goes off, and changing stances while an Equinox cycle reduces the cooldown by 0.3 seconds. It's very, very nice. This skill alone, in combination with Celestial Dance, allows for some very degenerate training methods for Dawn Warrior, where you literally just use your bossing attacks to switch between Sun and Moon stance as quickly as possible to just make use of the AoE explosions that this and Celestial Dance provide to clear the map while Rift of Damnation and Soul Eclipse are off cooldown. It's very, very low tier in terms of efficiency, but it's good enough that if you're lazy enough, it's a viable option for training. For bossing, the skill's pretty nice. Again, it's just extra damage while you're switching between your Equinox cycles. So no matter what you're doing, if you're using Styx Crossing, if you're using your Celestial Dance and attacking, this thing is going to be triggering quite constantly, helping your damage out a little bit. It's not a huge portion of your damage, but it is a nice supplement to the damage. Dawn Warrior is in a situation where it's a class that really doesn't have any proper burst. It's a lot of consistent damage and good cooldown cycling to maintain that damage, but there's no real punch to Dawn Warrior's bossing. Like, even if you have your best burst setup with Soul Eclipse, Rift of Damnation, and you're proccing your flare, it's not the greatest burst ever to be seen in this game. Then, referencing burst, Empress Cygnus's Blessing. This is just another damage bonus, and it increases your damage over time as well. Dawn Warrior completely lacks burst of its own, so you kind of just need to take all of the outside sources you can to make up for Dawn Warrior's lack of initial burst. So throwing on Empress Cygnus Blessing, especially if you're going to be doing any bosses, is a must. Same thing with Weapon Aura. It's a very small amount of final damage, but it is still final damage and the additional attack. For mobbing, Dawn Warrior absolutely doesn't need Weapon Aura. It's purely supplemental, and even then, more often than not, your trigger skills with Celestial Dance or Flare Slash are going to be killing the mobs. Weapon Aura would anyways, so it's not the highest value, but it's pretty mandatory for bossing. And, of course, True Arachnid's Reflection. You get it for completing the Will storyline. Decent mobbing, decent bossing. Unlike your Lucid Soul, this bad boy is actually going to deal some damage, so it's your reliable summon. You want to throw it on as soon as you get it. Ideally, as soon as you get it. Some people have issues where they want other skills on before this, but with only 2 trios, you shouldn't have any issues throwing on True Arachnid Reflection at 235. And then the decent skills. Decent speed infusion, decent sharp eyes, decent combat orders. It's the holy trinity. The 3 skills that aren't decent holy symbol, you want them if you need them. Attack speed, crit rate, crit damage, and all skills +1. This is probably the least valuable one, the one you'll throw on last. It's nice to supplement a little bit of extra damage, but not something too insane that you need to throw it on ASAP. And Phalanx Charge. I liked this skill a lot more on Wind Archer because it interacted with your trifling winds in a way that made this super beneficial to use. For Dawn Warrior, it really doesn't do that. For Dawn Warrior, it's pretty much just additional damage, and it's not that much damage. And it's also quite annoying to use for things like Dojo because the skill will constantly knock back mobs and just move them away from you. And when Dawn Warrior's bossing is all about forced jumps going up and down constantly, you don't have the best mobility. So this thing just constantly pushing bosses out of the way of your attacks is kinda troll. It has its niche uses for mobbing. I mostly used this skill when I was doing loot cycles, especially more towards like the Celis range of levels. I would just throw this thing when I'm going to the top of the map, so it's at the bottom, still killing some monsters. It's not the least useful thing in the universe, but it's definitely not high priority either. I probably wouldn't have even thrown this on if my EXP node didn't expire, but it does have some uses. It's just not the most useful. And Urdanova. It's an extra bind. Dawn Warrior has its own built-in class bind, which is insane, but always having a second bind is super nice. And for the training, like I mentioned, if you can, max out Celestial Dance because it's going to make your life a lot easier in the training department. In these early levels, it doesn't make too much of a difference, but I would say by the time you're into like Yum Yum Island, you'll start to notice just how much easier having Celestial Dance would be. I think the difference is like 30 seconds of downtime between cycling your 5th job skills if you don't have it maxed, which you could use it as a loot cycle timer, but you want to be killing mobs as much as possible, right? For 200 until 205. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Below the Cave, Eastern Cave Path, still 2 absolutely stellar maps. And for Dawn Warrior, they're just as good. Now, just like I was saying, your ideal mobbing is literally just cycling your 5th job skills. So you'll start with the Eclipse. This thing does have an attack limit. Unlike Ice Age, it doesn't individually attack mobs. It has just 15 mobs that it can hit every tick of damage, but it ticks very quickly. So just flash jumping through the map with your Soul Eclipse on is going to pretty much full clear everything. And you just walk yourself, or flash jump yourself rather, back and forth through the map, full clearing it as you go. And this thing is a 40-second uptime. It's so fucking good. And it always feels bad when it ends, but you do want to pay attention to its timer, because once it's getting close to ending, you want to make sure you're manually canceling it to get the final burst of attacks to kill additional mobs on top of its already insane mob count. And then follow that up with either Rift of Damnation or your Celestial Dance, and just keep on trucking through the map. This is very, very simple, very, very good rates. Effectively, all of Dawn Warrior skills are going to be double platting here. The EXP rates are insane, and you'll get on into the River City maps at 205 super, super fast. And then for 205 until 215, not the hidden research train. No, we want the hidden underground train. Much like Laura, these platforms just work better for Dawn Warrior since they're more flat. Dawn Warrior doesn't have really any reach issues with its abilities, more so you just want a map that you can flash jump through to just get the most out of your insane mobbing hitboxes. And effectively you're just going to be clearing everything on cooldown. Once your Styx crossing ends, you just swap over to Celestial Dance, and you just go back to using your default mobbing skill. The Celestial Dance is probably one of the more subtle animations Dawn Warrior has. You very rarely see it if you have your transparency turned up, but you actually do have what is effectively a shadow clone that is mimicking the alternate stance's attack that you're using. So if you're using the sun mobbing skill, your little clone will be using the moon mobbing skill. So effectively you're doubling up all of your mobbing skills, which pretty much means there's never a bundle of monsters big enough that you're not going to kill all of them. So it doesn't matter how congested a little area is, if Celestial Dance is up, you're guaranteed going to clear them as long as you're hitting them with your abilities. And then all of the mobs that are up there at the top, those are getting cleared by Flare Slash and the trigger effects for the Celestial Dance. I didn't mention it before, but the little triggers like the sun and the moon that are exploding that aren't on top of your character's model, those are from Celestial Dance. They just occur as you're swapping between stances using your main mobbing attack. It's very nice. Alternatively, for 210 to 215, you can do the river maps. Like I said, Dawn Warrior's hitboxes are absolutely insane. You can pretty much just drive by every single platform with the sun. So if you're not training on spawn boosters, Choo Choo is a very viable option for Dawn Warrior, just by how quickly you can clear through the river. And when you're full clearing the river, those maps are still very, very good. It's just that not too many classes can full clear the river. And then, ideally, 215 until 220, you want to head on over to the Hidden Iliad field. No hidden Mushbud Forest this time. We're back in the tried and true Hidden Iliad field. If you have a Lucid Soul, just drop her on one of the sides. It really doesn't matter which side you put her on, just as long as she's on one of the sides, because this map is quite long. Even with Dawn Warrior's insane hitboxes, you're not going to be clearing every nook and cranny this map has. You're just going to be clearing absolutely everything here in the middle. And this is the map where you'll ideally want to have Celestial Dance maxed out, because this is where you get into the true lazy training rotations for Dawn Warrior. This is the fall asleep at your keyboard and still get peak EXP rates of lazy. Dawn Warrior is so good in these small congested maps, just by nature of how good its centralized mobbing is. The only downside to Dawn Warrior is that all of your mobbing skills are centralized on your character model, so, you know, you don't have any placeable summons that deal reasonable damage. And for the showcase on why you can use degenerate strategies, when Celestial Dance is active, you can just switch between your bossing 2 skills going from Sun and Moon really quick, and that will trigger Flare Slash as quickly as it can. And you can literally just hold down your bossing skill and let the AoE explosions take care of the mobs outside of you. And then of course, once Rift of Damnation is up, go to the bottom of the map. Its hitbox is so absurd you'll hit the entire map, and you just clear like that. Obviously, if you don't want to do the super lazy rotation, just do what you would do with your Rift of Damnation, but while Celestial Dance is active, and just flash jump along the bottom. The explosion triggers from Celestial Dance and Flare Slash are tall enough to get to the top of the map, and it'll give you slightly better EXP rates. Not so much better that it's dramatically worse using the lazy method, but better enough that your more in tune trainers will choose it over the lazy method. And then 220 until 230, I would recommend Outlaw Street 2. Dawn Warrior's mobbing capabilities are so gosh darn good, I don't feel a reason why you shouldn't use this map. The only reason I wasn't able to, oops, this is Outlaw Street 1, uh-oh. The only reason I wasn't able to is because of the massive amount of server lag that was going on, so I literally couldn't train here, because the second I turned on Rift of Damnation, the game would just start chugging like 1 frame per minute. But now that the server lag is effectively fixed after the maintenance, this map is absolutely insane. Just look at that hitbox on Rift of Damnation. Is this not the most balanced ability you've ever seen? Just flash jump across the map. If you have a Lucid Soul, drop her on the right side. If anything, she probably won't be killing mobs at this level, but she will aggro the mobs on those platforms to walk over towards you, so you don't have to flash jump as far to the right to clear them out with Rift. And then of course, it just gets even easier once your Solar Eclipse is off cooldown. This map is absolutely fantastic. However, if the lag does get too bad in the game again, which happens fairly frequently, Rev 3 is also a fantastic alternative. This map is really, really good still. It doesn't compete with the best maps for this level range if you have the ability to mob in them, but it is still very, very good. Just pop your sun, flash jump left and right. Dawn Warrior is definitely one of the classes that has a little bit of trouble with Rev 3 outside of your Soul Eclipse and Rift of Damnation. It's very RNG if your Celestial Dance or Flare Slash Explosion kills the mobs that start clumping up on the house. So I would recommend, if you're going to be training here, get yourself a Lucid Soul, or just prioritize making sure that top left corner is clear of mobs so that they're not pulling excess spawn from the rest of the map and they're not harming your EXP rates in any way. The map is very, very good. Not the best EXP you can get for the level range, but it is very, very good compared to Hidden Iliad Field. This is already an upgrade to Hidden Iliad Field, let alone Outlaw Street 2. That's just miles better. And those will get you on into 230 really, really quickly. Honestly, you could stay in those maps until 235 if you wanted to, if you didn't have the Arcane Force to move on into Arcana, or you just really liked the training style for those maps. They will carry you a long ways. But 230 until 236, I would recommend Earth Spirits for Dawn Warrior. Similar to most of the other maps, you just want to have one of your 5th job skills active and you'll be flash jumping along the bottom. This map is a bit more RNG dependent than the other ones since you're relying on your Flare Slash and Celestial Dance triggers to clear the top platform when you're not using your Soul Eclipse or your Rift of Damnation. However, more often than not, they will trigger on the most congested area of mobs, which will generally be the center of the map, so it's not too inconsistent for your EXP rates. This class is very, very consistent on its EXP rates because of that. And you just flash jump through, either using Rift of Damnation for your attack, or you're using your Celestial Dance just cycling between your mobbing stances. And then, when you have your Solar Eclipse on, you can just stand in the middle. Solar Eclipse's hitbox is effectively your camera, so you'll be hitting almost everything. The only things you're not hitting are these very far platforms, which, if you're going for peak EXP rates, you want to be clearing those, so just flash jump left and right still. But if you want to use your Solar Eclipse as a 40-second break every 3 minutes, much like I did with Dawn Warrior's training, you can just stand in the middle. It'll still give you insane EXP rates. And then for 236 until 244, if you must, or if you're really, really lazy, Cavern Lower Path is definitely an option. I wouldn't recommend it. Its EXP rates aren't good, and your alternative isn't that much more effort. I would highly recommend LP1. This map is absolutely cracked for Dawn Warrior, especially for the EXP rates. As always, just cycle your 5th job skills, whichever one you have active, just use as your primary mobbing skill, and just flash jump across the map. This is definitely a map where I would recommend having a Lucid Soul because placing her on one of the sides is super handy as she will aggro mobs, much like in Outlaw Street 2. She's probably not going to be killing too many, but just the fact that she'll hit the mobs and then get them so that they walk towards you into the center of the map, meaning you don't have to go as far out of your way to kill them, is super duper beneficial. And this map is very, very good. Honestly, you could stay here until 250. I would have no qualms about staying here until 250. This map was already pushing over 100 bill per hour for the EXP rates on Dawn Warrior. It's very, very, very good. So that could be your option for 250. But if you're strong enough, and if you like underwater maps, 244 until 250. You knew it was coming. I didn't do it on Laura because she was too overpowered, but Dawn Warrior is just the right level of powerful. PD4 is where it's at. If you have it, place your Lucid Soul and your Will skill here on the top platform. because those are the only platforms you're really not going to be hitting with Rift of Damnation or Celestial Dance. And from the center of the map here, if you're using your Soul Eclipse, yep, this big bad boy right here hits the entire gosh darn map. So, referencing back again, the 40-second break every 3 minutes really becomes super nice and handy when you're in Celis. You literally are full clearing the map while this thing is active for 40 seconds. You can get up, go get yourself some water, go to the bathroom, grab a snack, do whatever. You're still going to be getting the best EXP out of this map that you can. And as always, once your Eclipse is coming to a close, make sure you manually cast it to get the final attack. It will pretty much clear everything, and then you just cycle through your 5th job skills. For Celestial Dance on this map, I tended to just stand here in the middle and attack left and right because that gave me the best odds of getting my Celestial Dance explosions and my flare slash explosions to hit the mobs that are more at the top of the map, where your summons are the only things that are hitting them. But really, there aren't too many mobs here at the tippity top of the map that you're missing that they're going to harm your EXP rates in that noticeable of a way. So while this is active and while your Rift of Damnation is active, you're not really clearing the top, but you're killing enough of the map that you're getting the full respawn of mobs every time, and your EXP rates are super, super high. Despite not being able to do a proper battle analysis for the entirety of this class, I did do some math after training, and the EXP rates once I got to Celis were pushing around 130 bill per hour, which for a warrior class is pretty fucking great. And for Rift of Damnation, just jump along the bottom. The hitbox on this skill is very balanced. You'll hit all 3 of these platforms. This is really where your summons come into play a lot more, because there is nowhere on the map that you can hit everything with Rift of Damnation. So you're just attacking from the bottom of the map since you're hitting the most amount of mobs. And then while it's active, just either your Lucid Soul or your Will skill are pretty much the only things that are going to be clearing the top. But the XP, absolutely insane. The training, top tier cozy training rotations on Dawn Warrior. You really can't ask for too much more. Maybe like a Pathfinder or a Luminous are a little bit lazier, but Dawn Warrior really pushes the envelope for a warrior class in terms of how much effort is required and how darn good those EXP rates are. Good lord, man. Dawn Warrior was a treat to train. Absolutely enjoyable. Outside of Rift of Damnation, I don't really have too many problems with this class when it comes to training. It feels really good. It does have some problems, like for larger maps, because it has all of its mobbing skills centralized on your character. Like, everything is centralized around you. You don't have any placeable summons. You don't have any residual damaging skills outside of like the Rift from Rift of Damnation. You can't really make the most use out of extra large maps. Aside from like Soul Eclipse, that skill is absurd even in those extra large maps. But at least now going forward, since we know that spawn boosters are not going to be a thing anymore for future content, Dawn Warrior is only really going to get better and better as time goes on, because at lower spawn speeds, Dawn Warrior's mobbing is pretty fucking insane. when you're not constantly being hassled by frenzied spawns, super quick respawn speed, you really get to see just how absolutely broken these hitboxes are for training in larger maps. Your rotations for Dawn Warrior, even in super large maps, are kind of tight. You don't really have to travel too far to hit the entire map with a lot of these skills. The Dawn Warrior's mobbing is really only going to get better as we move towards higher and higher level training areas. That's really great. Dawn Warrior's bossing, on the other hand. Now, keep in mind, we do know, and Nexon Korea has announced that the Cygnus Knights are the next branch of classes up for revamps. So potentially this will be fixed in the future, but that future is like 9 months to a year away still as of recording this video. So we're kind of stuck with Dawn Warrior's bossing as it is for a good while. And it's not great. Let's just start off with the standard stuff. Having forced movement on your bossing skill is horrendous. Like, being forced to jump up and down constantly to deal damage feels horrible. You're constantly at risk of jumping into boss mechanics, you're constantly at risk of being airborne when you need to be grounded to move out of the ways of skills. You do have one skill, which is my favorite skill that Dawn Warrior has after playing this class, which is your Equinox Slash. This will cancel any animation that you're doing and dash you in a direction of your choosing, either left or right. Runs into a problem where it keeps you airborne. You can't dash to the ground or dash downwards at an angle to get away from things. So if there's like a straight line hitbox that's gonna kill you, you're still gonna get killed by it if you're mid-jump for your bossing skills. It doesn't feel great. It's pretty oof. But in those situations, most Dawn Warriors kind of just tend to either use Rift of Damnation as their skill to get through like phase 1 of Lotus for the lasers, because jumping into those is a pain in the ass. You just ideally want to use Rift of Damnation if you can kill it in one burst, or just use your mobbing skill in a pinch, because that's a lot safer to do than risking jumping into the lasers. Feels real bad. The burst on this class is just not there. Like, outside of Tower of Oz rings, Dawn Warrior has no real burst. Like, you have a bunch of skills, but you can't use them all at the same time to get damage. Because when you're using Celestial Dance, you absolutely don't want Rift of Damnation active, because they're two completely separate skills. Overlapping these effectively just negates the one you're not using. It feels really bad. The only skill you have that you can activate as like burst is Soul Eclipse, so you're either using Soul Eclipse and Celestial Dance, or ideally Soul Eclipse and Rift of Damnation. And even then, it's not that much burst, because there are no burst buffs to back it up. The only thing Dawn Warrior has that's close to a burst buff is like its debuff for extra damage and the level 200 Explorer buff, I guess, and your 5th job skills if you have them on, but they're very, very inconsequential buff skills that there is no real burst on Dawn Warrior. And especially since we're in like this hardcore bind burst meta for Maple Story bossing, not having significant burst feels real bad. Like, Dawn Warrior's consistent damage isn't anything to laugh at. It's close to a lot of Hurricane classes, even a little bit better than most Hurricane classes for consistent damage output. But for proper bind burst bossing in the endgame, Dawn Warrior does not feel good. Even more so that one of your bursting skills is also your only iframe outside of like a Genesis weapon or Blink to get out of the way. It's not great. For the convenience, it does have a self-bind. That's nice, you know. Don't need a wholly rely on Urta Nova, so that's a big thumbs up. But yeah, the cons outweigh the pros for Dawn Warrior as well. Dawn Warrior isn't ping dependent anymore, but Dawn Warrior is definitely still server dependent. If the servers are laggy, which they definitely were when I was training Dawn Warrior, you're gonna get stuck in your Sun and Moon stance, especially when you're using Celestial Dance, which is horrendous because that's when you need to be doing your biggest, most powerful damage. The form switching between Sun and Moon really isn't too much of an issue. It's more so Celestial Dance's trigger effect when you're swapping between Sun and Moon, the little Moon explosion and the Sun explosion. Those seem to be the things that get caught up on server lag, and you'll just get stuck repeating the same attack over and over again because for whatever reason the server's like delayed on telling you, yep, that boss skill goes off, and letting you swap into the next stance, because before these skills trigger, you can't swap stances for whatever reason. Feels really bad. That's absolutely something I hope they address with the upcoming revamp. Just either fully make this class client-sided, like literally everything, or get rid of the whole jumping up and down, swapping between stances thing. Make that just for Celestial Dance, so that it mimics your opposite modes attacking skills. Like I said at the beginning, this class does break attack speed cap on its own, similar to like Zero with its blue aura toggled on. They can get to attack speed 1 by themselves, so there is some merit to the idea of using a one-handed sword as your training sword, because if you're breaking the attack speed cap with your Sun stance or your Equinox stance and you're using a one-handed sword, you're effectively at attack speed 0, without the use of green potions, or you can just use attack speed inner and a two-handed sword and you're at attack speed 0 without green potions. But that seems like a waste. Rerolling inner ability, especially your prime line, is kind of tedious, so I would say either just use a one-handed sword for training or just get used to not having attack speed 0. There is some merit to attack speed 0 the faster you're switching between your stances, especially for the degenerate training where you're just using your bossing skill. It does help your rates out because the quicker you're getting between Sun and Moon stance with your Celestial Dance active, or just triggering Flare Slash, the faster those are going to go off, the better your rates. But I don't think Dawn Warrior is that bad out on the rates that you need to worry too much about that. Especially for the warriors. The only other warriors that are really keeping up with Dawn Warrior for EXP rates are like Kaiser and Zero. I don't think Dawn Warrior is that much of a slouch or in trouble with its mobbing to facilitate all of these extra steps for reaching attack speed 0 while mobbing. I never really noticed an issue with it. Dawn Warrior's EXP rates were fine for me. It was a little bit above average for the warriors. Not a perfect class overall, especially going forward for larger maps like the released grandest maps currently. Not the greatest, since it doesn't have any real placeable summons or any residual mobbing skills that'll stay in areas after you leave them. Not the greatest, but its mobbing damage is very, very good, so you'll be able to cheat your way into areas before other warriors will. So I don't think Dawn Warrior is that bad off for mobbing, but for the bossing department, oh Jesus. Outside of pure convenience stuff, Dawn Warrior is, it's not great for bossing. Like I said, it's not ping dependent anymore. I play, especially while I'm streaming, I play MapleStory with 450 ping. Go rural Montana internet. It's really bad for the ping department, but I never had any problems switching between Sun and Moon stance with my horrendous ping. The only problems I had were when the servers would lag, and then I would just get stuck in a stance until the lag ended. Feels bad, and especially with how GMS servers are usually, especially if you play in Bara or in Reboot. Don't know if I would recommend Dawn Warrior as a main. It's a real fun class. It's got an absolutely gorgeous aesthetic. I love this class to death, but Jesus, until everything is client-sided, I don't think I'd pick it as a main. Yeah, you're too at the mercy of the servers on this class to deal ideal damage, and even when you're dealing that ideal damage, it's not the best damage. It's one of the weaker warriors when it comes to bossing. For mobbing, Dawn Warrior's giga cracked. This class is 12 out of 10 for the mobbing department, but hopefully with the revamp they address the bossing and bring it up to at least playable standards. But as it sits currently, if you just want to train, Dawn Warrior is great. If you have any plans or aspirations for doing endgame bossing, just be ready. Any server lag is about to make your life horrific. It's not great. But that's been Dawn Warrior, the first 250 of 2022. I had a whole bunch of fun leveling Dawn Warrior, especially coming out of Laura. I didn't expect this class to be that easy, but holy shit, it was so easy. If I knew how good Dawn Warrior was as a mobber coming into this class, I absolutely would have saved Dawn Warrior for later, because my ideal way is doing like a hard class, easy class, hard class, easy class, especially when it comes to mobbing, but we just did 2 supremely easy classes back to back, boys. So I'm thinking the next one might as well be a little bit more challenging, a little bit more effort. I'll give you a hint on what it is. It's the last of its kind. And oh boy, I'm kind of ready to play it. But that has been Dawn Warrior. If you have any questions about Dawn Warrior, about my journey to get all these classes in MapleStory to 250, or heck, about playing MapleStory in general, do ask them in the comments below. I make it a point to answer any and all questions, so long as they're not the same questions I've answered a million times, like, when are you doing X class? When I get to it. But if you have any questions, ask them down below. And hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you next time.